Hello there, everyone. How you doing today? Welcome back to the only channel fueled entirely by Dr. Pepper and autistic thoughts. Today we're going into r/entitled people to read stories about people who are incredibly entitled. If you enjoy, be sure to do the interacting on YouTube. Now kick your legs back, relax, and let me spin you some yarns. Alright, let's get started. Entitled mother calls the police on me for stealing her daughter, who is my girlfriend and an adult. Sorry this is so long, but those of you who read it will enjoy it. This happened about 5 years ago. My fiancé and I have been together 7 years this month. We're hoping to get married this year, but might postpone due to the circumstances. We were reminiscing some old stories yesterday when this one came up, and I suggested I share it. She was my girlfriend at the time, and at the time I was fully aware that her mom was a few fries short of a Happy Meal. But this was the pinnacle of her behavior. If you guys enjoy this story, I actually have a few more I shall share if you'd like. Sorry for the length, but I hope you guys enjoy it. Cast: EM for entitled mom, girlfriend is Ellie, PO is police officer, and OP is me, obviously. So, for the story. Ellie and I weren't living together at the time. She just stayed over from time to time when she could. I took her home after she'd been staying with me for a couple days and was heading to work. But shortly after, just before getting to work, I get a phone call from her, and I can tell she is in tears. Apparently when she got inside, entitled mom immediately blew up about her being gone for so long. Even though it was only 2 days and she told EM she was going to be gone and kept in contact with her while she was gone. But Ellie just sort of brushed it off and went to her room. EM's house was pretty much your stereotypical crazy cat lady house. House was badly decaying, cats all over the place, going to the bathroom in random places and whatnot. And when Ellie gets to her room, she realizes while she was gone, the cats pissed and shit all over a pile of her clean clothes. But whatever, Ellie just decided to bag them up and she would wash them next time she came to my place. Her mom did not have a functioning washer at the time, and apparently that really set entitled mom off. Entitled mom apparently thought Ellie was bagging her clothes because she was planning to go back to my place that might stay another few days. She stomped into her room, grabbed her bag, ripped it open, and flung her clothes all over the room, along with the cat shit and piss, while screaming at Ellie that she's not going anywhere. And that was when Ellie ran outside and called me. She was so upset and didn't know what to do. Her mom had been doing crazy stuff to Ellie since I'd been with her, but up until now I just helped her however I could without getting involved and not saying a word to her mom. I told her to go ahead and get the things she needs and I'll take her to my place. She said she would love that, and I told my work I was going to be late due to an emergency, and I turned around to go pick her up. When I pulled back into the house, Ellie was in the driveway crying. I went and hugged her, told her it was going to be okay, and that she could stay with me as long as she wanted. So she went back inside to get her things. As I was standing outside waiting, I heard the door open again and went to help Ellie with her things. Uh-oh, it's her mom. The EM comes stomping out with their crazy hair and frizzled and an old nightgown. She beelines for me and gets right in my face. The entitled mom with an extremely thick, high-pitched southern accent, "My daughter and I need to come out with her and ask what you think of me." I knew that was a blatant lie, as Ellie would never instigate this. "You got something to say, huh? You think I'm trash, don't you, huh? That's what you think, isn't it?" Again, up until now, I'd completely kept my mouth shut, and I was trying to maintain that. But this woman was up in my face, freaking out, and was tormenting the woman I loved, so I finally looked at her and broke my silence. "Why do you treat her like this?" I said. "What do you mean? That's my daughter, and I worship the ground she walks on." Really, so calling her a slut, bitch, cunt, and whore is worship? Yes, I've heard her say this with my own ears. "I would never say anything like that." And me, getting irate, say, "Bullshit, I've heard you say it." Excuse me. Sorry about that. And then the entitled mom explodes and says, "You get your ass off my property." Okay, I almost never find myself in situations like this, so I'm not used to it. But I say because after she said this, I pretty much saw red. I'm not proud of it, but I just started shouting every curse word in the book I could possibly think of at the top of my lungs while she went back in the house. But thankfully, that only lasted a few seconds, and I immediately calmed down. So finally, Ellie comes back out with her stuff. We put her in the car, and I assume it's over. But Ellie turns to me and says, "I'm sorry, but we can't leave yet." "Why not?" "Mom called the cops." I sort of had a feeling this would happen. No big deal. So we just sat and waited for the cop to arrive. After about 10 minutes or so, a cop car pulls up, and right when he does, EM comes out of the house, and oh my god, she was doing exactly what you think she was. She instantly puts on the fragile, brittle old lady act. Hunched over, walking slowly, the whole gig. And of course, when the police officer asks her what happens, she has to pitch her entire medical chart to the guy. Ellie will tell you this woman has been terminally ill for 12 years, lol. So when that finally gets done trying to milk the poor guy for sympathy, she tells her version of what happened. "Sir, he came onto my property and verbally attacked me. He's awful to me, sir, and I've never even done anything to him. He's turned my daughter against me and is trying to convince her to leave." At first, he seems somewhat sympathetic to her until he turns to Ellie. "Ma'am, is this your boyfriend?" "Yes, sir." "Okay, how old are you?" "Sir, I'm 23. And this was my favorite part because the officer looked up from his notepad with a look of, "Wait, what?" Obviously, he was thinking Ellie was a minor or something based off how entitled Mom was acting, but quickly realized just what he was dealing with. Eventually, he turns to me. "Okay, sir, please give me your version of what happened." And I did so. Funny side note, at one point the police officer looks up at me and says, "You look really familiar. Do I know you?" It actually turned out the police officer and I had gone to high school together. Once we recognized each other, we laughed and shook hands very briefly. This was hilarious because out of the corner of my eye, I see EM has a big scowl on her face as she sees me getting friendly with a police officer, but anyway. Police officer puts his notepad away and turns to me. Just FYI, he says the following with this heavy tone of, "I know that you're fully aware of this, and I don't believe you're in the wrong at all, but I have to say this as a formality. Well, OP, she doesn't want you on the property, so be aware that if you come back here, you technically can be charged with trespassing. Do you understand this as I've explained it?" "Absolutely, sir." "But, sir, I want to press charges." "He didn't do anything illegal, ma'am." "But he verbally assaulted me." "I understand that, and while that was ill-advised," he slightly turns to me and gives me a small gesture with his hand, and I nod in agreement. "It's not something I could arrest him for. He agrees he'll not come back on your property without your direct permission." Okay, fine, whatever. Ellie, come back inside." "What? No," says Ellie. EM says, "You heard, police officer. OP's leaving and you're staying here." "Whoa, ma'am, I didn't say that at all," said the police officer. But, your daughter is not a child, ma'am. She is a full-grown adult. She has every right to go wherever she wants." "But I'm her mother. She lives under my roof. I told her she needs to stay here, so she needs to stay." "No, ma'am, that is not how that works. If she wants to go with her boyfriend, there is absolutely nothing you can do to stop her." EM starts to fake crocodile tears and stomps into the house in defeat. Ellie and I thanked the officer, got in the car, and left, and we've been living together ever since. And now there's a happy ending. Believe it or not, EM isn't really much of an EM anymore. Over the years since that day, EM has actually decided to make an effort and try to improve herself. I guess she realized that if she didn't make changes, she would lose her relationship with Ellie. So EM started taking advantage of her medical coverage and went to see her psychiatrist, and got medicine for mental illness she actually had. as opposed to the one she would make up. Since then, well, she has actually gotten way better. She takes her medicine regularly and has a boyfriend that is an extremely kind man and treats Ellie as though she were his own daughter. So basically, EM isn't really an EM anymore. We actually get along very well and we see them frequently and we help each other out wherever we can. We actually look back on the early years when she was in fact an EM and laugh. So not only is everyone getting along well, we actually share the cringe stories and happily laugh about them. If you guys would like to hear some more, let me know. Let's read a comment here. It is very refreshing to read one of these that has a happy ending. It's also good to hear that you and Ellie are still together. I'm glad the EM got help and she changed her ways too. Overall, super happy about this story. Thank you so much for sharing it, OP. I couldn't agree more with that comment. It's really nice that things are going well for OP and the entitled mother got the help she needed. Honestly, I hope things continue going well for them and they have the best life ever. Now on to the next story. This is how I started a revolution in my entitled family. All I wanted was my sisters. So I posted part of this in Am I the A-hole as a recent conflict I'll bring up later left me doubting myself, but due to so many people's interest, I've decided to elaborate my family's boundless entitlement here. I'm currently in custody of my two little sisters, Amy who is 17 and Lisa who is 8. Not their real names for obvious reasons. I'm a 29 male and we live in Australia. I am Potato, as that's what Lisa calls me, and that is basically the story of how my family felt they were entitled to both my sisters' bodies, and I wouldn't stand for that. I would like to warn anyone who has faced abuse in the past, as parts of my story may trigger some people, and to anyone who has faced abuse in the past, I do feel deeply sorry for you. The main part of the story takes place about a year ago. I moved out 6 years ago at the time and moved to another state for work and study. I was honestly really slack with keeping contact with my family, which is probably why this went on for so long. When I do think back to the time before I moved out, I didn't treat Amy the best, and if I hadn't moved out and had so little contact with my family, I may have turned out just as entitled and as much of a horrible person. I came back to visit for a grandparent's birthday. After spending so long away, I spent the morning catching up with my aunts, uncles, cousins, and parents. Of course, Lisa as well. Now, this was actually the first time I'd really realized the oddities of my family. Perhaps it was the change in environment. A few of my roommates had little sisters and whatnot after all, but it was the first time I noticed how quiet the little girls in my family were. I guess I'd always just thought of Amy as this really shy and quiet little girl, but my cousins were so much the same. Polite, shy, and quiet and obedient. Though at the time I brushed this off. After a few hours, I realized that Amy was nowhere to be seen all day. The party was at my parents' house, so this confused me, and I slipped inside to see if she was cooped up in her room like a lot of 16-year-olds would be, talking to friends or doing assessments. What I found is a memory that will haunt me forever. My oldest uncle on my father's side, laying over my sister, was quite clearly in a lot of pain and struggling not to cry as he pinned her beneath him. I completely lost it, as any brother would, shouting at him to get off her and out of the room. I scared the hell out of both of them in that moment, but I was honestly ready to kill my uncle. Amy was pretty messed up in the head when I tried consoling her. She was covered in scars, had a rash that I later found out was an allergic reaction, allergic to strawberries. Thankfully it wasn't anything with him. She didn't speak and looked at me as if she expected for me to hurt her too. The room was dimly lit, the blinds taped closed to her wall. All the things she'd had when I left were gone, leaving her bedroom feeling cold and empty. And to add insult to injury, she was a month pregnant. When I demanded an explanation from my parents, they, paraphrasing, said it was my uncle's right, and my father simply pointed out one of my 11-year-old cousins sitting quietly with my parents and told me to have fun. Oh my god. I stormed off back to Amy's room, quietly packed a bag of necessities, and managed to sneak her out of the house and into my car before doing the same with Lisa. Part of me wanted to get all my cousins out too, but my main focus was Amy right now, who sat trembling in the back of my car. I drove them both to the closest police station to report what was happening. I'll skip most of the details of the legal battle that ensued, but my family did not take kindly to being outed for what they were doing. It was, quote-unquote tradition that spanned generations, and there shouldn't be anything wrong with tradition. Amy and Lisa were put into temporary foster care. Amy was a wreck. To her, everyone could and would hurt her, and I got reports every few hours that she was having a panic attack. 3 of my uncles went to jail for a very long time, and I got a fair bit of money out of a range of family members for full custody of both Amy and Lisa. No enforced visitation to their parents. My parents had to pay for any therapy costs, medication, and medical needs for both of them. My family was torn in two by this, many of my aunts leaving their husbands with their children, after finally having the courage to follow me. Uncles who had married into the family took their wives, who had also been abused, and cut off ties. I still keep in contact with these members of my family, and I'm grateful for their support, and glad that my cousins are safer now. Even some of the older guys who had been brought up thinking it was okay to treat women that way took themselves into counseling once they realized just how messed up it was. And I've had more than one instance where they admitted to hurting Amy and apologized, which I've accepted, as these cousins did their best to take their siblings or other cousins out of harmful environments. I'm just going to say it's not your place to forgive them, OP, but anyway, reading the rest of the story. Now, I do believe some part of the ruling protected the younger men of the family, provided they see some sort of mental health professional, as they grew up thinking this was all normal. So they didn't end up in jail, but did end up on some possible list of sex offenders. Not entirely sure there. No one is sure who fathered Amy's child, but she had her pregnancy terminated, as we were told her physical and mental health would not cope with carrying a baby she ultimately would unlikely care for. She did consent at the time and was brought up by her psychologist once she was doing better, and she confirmed that she would have no love to the baby due to the circumstances in which she fell pregnant. For 6 years, Amy had been physically, sexually, mentally, and emotionally abused in every way conceivable. This mostly came from my father's 4 brothers and brother-in-law who married into the family. My parents both stood by and let this happen, offering no support for Amy. During the case, my uncles argued it was their birthright being born into the family, and it was simply Amy's rite of passage before she was married off to one of my uncle's mates at 18. They used her allergy as a form of torture and manipulation. Wanting her to be silent and obedient, they would press strawberries against her skin every time she said a word and force her to eat them when she stepped too far out of line. A lot of my aunts and father's side admitted to enduring this treatment too, although most of them were lucky and didn't have allergies to exploit. I honestly can't even begin to explain everything that was wrong with Amy because of their behavior. Lisa, for the most part, was okay. She needed a little therapy as she was being groomed into compliance and taught that she would experience was normal, but Amy had completely shut down. It took 2 months before I could even get her speaking. She trusts me now, and we often sit down and I let her talk and open up about whatever she feels comfortable about talking about. Her stories often have me struggling to hold back tears while I comfort her. I did get Amy a service dog a few months ago, tailored towards the emotional support she needs on a regular basis. Lickety Split honestly is the goodest of good doggos. She knows exactly when she's needed and is a massive help when it comes to calming Amy's anxiety, especially in public. We've had more than one encounter with unrelated entitled parents thinking they own their kid or their kid deserves her dog more than her. Let me know if you want these stories published too, because I've seen people like to read about service dog related incidents. But anyone who does think they can honestly fight me. No one deserves her dog more than her. On one occasion, one of my aunts, her husband, went to jail, tried taking Lickety Split because their money paid for her, and I told her if she ever comes near my property again, I would call their police, as there was a restraining order against her towards both my sisters. Later, she came back and tried to poison Lickety Split with tainted meat. But one of my lovely neighbors caught her and chased her off. The police were called, and she is now in jail too, after having to pay a fine and some money to me, because at this point I'm pretty well acquainted in the legal system and sued her ass into oblivion. My family still tried to get my sisters out of my care, reporting me for anything and everything from animal abuse to drug trafficking. They planted drugs in an identical stuffed toy to Amy's comfort toy I left in the yard, but Amy would never do that, so I knew there was something up immediately. Home security systems work wonders. I've actually become pretty chummy with the local police officers who have to inspect their claims, but they know I never do anything to endanger my custody over the girls. They mean the world to me. I will admit, though, that I have done things to hurt my bond with them, yelling when stressed and throwing things from time to time, but I'm not perfect, and Amy has told me although these moments do scare her, she doesn't feel endangered being near me when they do happen. I also spoil them a little when it does happen. Now, the reason this ended on Am I the A-hole, because a few weeks ago my mother contacted me saying she wanted to talk. I was hesitant, but agreed, and we met up in the room next town over. No way I could be followed home, and my mother explained how she was in the process of divorcing my father and she wanted to have a relationship with me and my sisters, with emphasis on mending her bond with Amy, who has not called her mom in years. She explained how she was pressured into the marriage after she got pregnant with me and never wanted that life for her daughters. I flat out told her no, something several members of my family disagreed with, as she could have done literally anything to support Amy emotionally with what was happening, done anything to make her feel better or more secure with what was happening to her. But instead she was shunned and isolated, except for when she was needed to cook, clean, or provide some sort of service to the family, even going as so far as to berate her whenever she did try to confide in my mom that she was in pain or scared. Amy was well past her breaking point when I took her, and I'd even planned on offing herself less than a week after my visit. My mother argued that she has the same right as other members of my family who had left and had contacted my sisters, but I told her it was because they were doing it to protect their children and themselves. They didn't wait a year after losing custody to try and fight for them, and I really don't even need to give a reason. I have custody, and she does not. Members of My the A-hole convinced me that when Amy is in a better place mentally and when Lisa is older, I bring it up with them and leave the decision in their hands. I've been told Amy will be a dependent well after she turns 18. Her mind just doesn't function properly, so there is no risk of her mother getting into contact behind my back, even when she's an adult. And while Amy does have a phone and a computer, she doesn't have any social media, as she doesn't want any chance of her family trying to contact her, as they've threatened her with many forms of torture in the past. This story doesn't have a slam dunk ending. I have my sisters, and they're in a safe environment where they'll get to grow up as kids. Amy is getting the help she needs and is slowly making her way out of the tower she built to protect herself in the only way she could. But she knows there isn't a rush to come out. I'll work with her at the pace she sets. She's still discovering her own interests, but quite just like reading a book with a form of fruity tea, she also has a small collection of stuffed animals, mostly Build-A-Bear, that she adores and takes one with her everywhere. She is sensitive to texture, so the feeling that is a comfort to her, and once a week we sit down to try and find older bears she likes. We only have 3 Build-A-Bears on our wish list. And honestly, I've loved helping Amy discover herself, since she lost a lot of her ability to think and feel for herself during this time, and watching her find her favorite book genre, or her favorite types of music is a great feeling, knowing how far she's come, and I live for the days she actually manages to smile. I'd be willing to answer most questions, so if you want to know anything, just ask, as I want to bring awareness to these types of things still happening to other kids, but obviously some things I'd rather keep to myself for the girl's sake. That is the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed today's stories. And let me tell you, that trigger warning earlier was there for a reason. Dear Lord Almighty, I do not know how I kept a straight face reading all that, but I guess it's because I'm emotionally numb from trauma as well. Yay! Anyway, I hope you all enjoy. Like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and hype this video, please. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.